I Give Up, a Ghost Movement essay. I give up is one of the most common sentences people say, and one of the least examined. It slips out in kitchens, cars, offices, late at night, early in the morning. Sometimes it is spoken aloud. Sometimes it stays inside the chest, pressed down behind the ribs, repeated without sound. Most people think they know what it means. They hear failure, they hear weakness, they hear a door closing, but the sentence is older and wider than that. It carries many meanings at once, often contradicting itself. It can be collapse, but it can also be clarity. It can be withdrawal, but it can also be refusal. It can be a genuine ending, or it can be a move made within a conversation. It can mark the moment someone stops caring, or the moment they finally stop pretending. We live in a culture that praises endurance and mistrusts stopping. To give up is often framed as the opposite of character, yet most people who say "I give up" have not arrived there casually. The sentence usually comes at the end of a long stretch of effort, not at the beginning. It is rarely impulsive. More often, it is delayed. It is held back until the body cannot keep pretending everything is fine. At its most obvious level, giving up is exhaustion finally speaking. It appears when demands outpace recovery, when effort exceeds capacity, when the gap between what is asked and what is possible grows too wide to bridge quietly. People give up when they have been carrying too much for too long, when rest has been postponed indefinitely, when relief never quite arrives. This version of giving up is not dramatic. It is flat, tired, almost dull. It sounds like someone placing a heavy bag down after realizing they cannot carry it any further. In these moments, I give up is not a moral statement. It is a physical one. The body has reached its limit. The nervous system has run out of room. The sentence simply names what is already happening internally. Ignoring that sentence does not create strength. It usually creates collapse later, in a more expensive form. People often judge themselves harshly for arriving here. They compare themselves to others who seem to manage more. They tell themselves they should be able to continue. But capacity is not evenly distributed, and it does not remain constant over time. What someone could carry 5 years ago may be impossible now. Giving up in this sense is not quitting life or responsibility. It is recognizing that the cost has exceeded what can be paid without damage. There is another form of giving up that looks similar on the surface, but feels very different internally. This is the moment when someone stops investing energy in something that has never returned it. The effort may still be available, but the direction of that effort shifts. People give up on being understood by someone who does not listen. They give up on trying to earn belonging in places that withhold it by design. They give up on definitions of success that require constant self-erosion. This is not resignation, it is reorientation. The sentence "I give up" in these cases does not mean I am done. It means I am done spending energy here. It is the end of misdirected persistence, not the end of care itself. Often, this kind of giving up is accompanied by relief rather than despair. Something loosens. The body exhales. There is space again. Not all effort is virtuous. Persistence can become a way of avoiding harder truths, especially the truth that something is not working and never has. Many people stay far too long in situations that deplete them because they have been taught that endurance is inherently meaningful. They confuse strain with value. Giving up here is not laziness or avoidance. It is discernment arriving late, but arriving nonetheless. As the sentence moves away from exhaustion and clarity, it begins to change shape. I give up is not always a private reckoning. Sometimes it is a social move, a way of ending a conversation without fully entering it, a way of placing the weight of response onto someone else, a way of withdrawing while appearing open. This version of giving up often appears in relationships. It might sound like surrender, but it carries an unspoken request. The hope is that someone else will step in, reassure, persuade, or take over. The sentence halts discomfort without naming its source. It allows a person to exit a difficult moment without stating what they actually want or no longer want. This is rarely deliberate. Most people are not consciously trying to influence or corner others. They are using language that feels safer than anger, boredom, or refusal. Saying "I give up" can feel less confrontational than saying "I am done trying," or "I do not want this anymore," or "this no longer matters to me." It sounds softer, it appears vulnerable, but it can also leave the other person holding the emotional labour of repair or rescue. When this happens repeatedly, giving up becomes a pattern rather than a conclusion. It stalls movement without resolving anything. The sentence floats in the space between collapse and control. It avoids responsibility while appearing honest. Over time, this erodes trust, not because giving up is wrong, but because it is unclear what is actually being relinquished. Another layer sits beneath this, quieter and more structural. People are constantly, often unconsciously, doing arithmetic. They calculate effort against return, investment against outcome, cost against reward. They do this at work, in families, in friendships, inside institutions. Most of the time, the calculations remain unspoken. People tolerate imbalance longer than they should, especially when the imbalance has been normalized. "I give up" often arrives when that arithmetic can no longer be ignored, when someone realizes that they are paying into something that does not pay back, that their care, time, or loyalty has become a one-way transaction. This is especially common in environments where effort is invisible or taken for granted, where commitment is praised but care is not reciprocated, where people are told to be grateful simply for being included. Giving up here is not an emotional outburst. It is a ledger being closed. It is the quiet acknowledgement of unpaid emotional debt. Most people who give up in this way have already tried to rebalance things internally. They have lowered expectations. They have rationalized. They have waited. The sentence arrives only when the imbalance becomes undeniable. There is a more uncomfortable reason people give up, one that is harder to admit and harder to witness. Sometimes giving up protects identity. Staying engaged would require risk. It would mean being seen trying and failing. It would mean allowing something to matter fully, without guarantees. For people who have learned that exposure leads to hurt, giving up early can feel safer than staying present. This kind of giving up is not weakness. It is learned protection. It often forms in environments where effort was punished, ignored, or used against someone, where vulnerability led to loss rather than connection. Over time, the nervous system learns that withdrawal is safer than hope. The sentence "I give up" becomes a shield, not because the person does not care, but because they care too much to risk being undone again. In these cases, giving up happens not because something is impossible, but because it is too close, too meaningful, too uncertain. The cost of staying open feels higher than the cost of leaving. From the outside, this can look like disengagement. From the inside, it feels like self-preservation. What makes "I give up" such a powerful sentence is that it does not declare what comes next. It names an ending without specifying what is ending. Effort, hope, attachment, participation, struggle. Each version carries a different consequence. Without clarity, the sentence can mean almost anything. This ambiguity is both its strength and its danger. The problem is not giving up itself. The problem is giving up without knowing what is being relinquished, without distinguishing between stopping harm and stopping growth, between ending waste and ending possibility, between laying something down and walking away from something that still matters. There is a cultural tendency to either condemn giving up or romanticize it. Neither stance is particularly useful. Condemnation ignores the realities of exhaustion, imbalance, and misdirected effort. Romanticizing ignores the ways giving up can become avoidance, habit, or defense. The sentence does not need redemption, it needs precision. When someone says, I give up, the most honest question is not whether they are right or wrong, strong or weak. It is simply this: what are you actually giving up here? Effort that was never going to be returned, a role that cost too much, a fight that no longer makes sense, or the discomfort of staying present when things are unresolved. Sometimes giving up is the most accurate response available. Sometimes it is premature. Sometimes it is an ending that creates space. Sometimes it is a pause that masquerades as a conclusion. The sentence itself does not tell us which it is. Only what follows, or fails to follow, does that. There are moments when giving up clears the ground, when it stops the drain and allows something else to emerge. And there are moments when giving up freezes movement, keeping someone stuck in the safety of withdrawal. Both are real. Both exist. Neither needs moral framing to be understood. Most people will say, I give up, many times in their lives. Sometimes quietly, sometimes aloud, sometimes correctly, sometimes too soon. The sentence is not a verdict on character, it is a signal. It marks a point where something has reached its limit, whether that limit is physical, emotional, relational, or imagined. The work is not to erase the sentence or to glorify it. The work is to listen to it closely, to notice what has led up to it, to ask what is actually ending and what might still be available once the noise around endurance and obligation quietens. I give up does not have to mean everything stops. It often means something specific must stop so that something else can remain. And occasionally it means someone is laying down a weight they were never meant to carry in the first place.